Thanks for stopping by, guys, and welcome back to GearBlocks. This time taking a little look at a community request, I guess I could say. So someone in one of the recent videos actually asked if I could take a look at some of the default vehicles that are already in the game. The sort of example vehicles, shall I say, and update a few of them. Because some of them, like the sports car, has an electric and a gasoline version. However, others like the 3V and, well, a lot of these are just using an electric motor. And some of them do have a placeholder gas engine, like this one here, which has little linkage arms to push little blocks that look like pistons. So the goal was to try and take some of these creations, put the actual gasoline engines from the recent update into them, while keeping as much of the aesthetic and the core vehicle as possible. So, today, we're going to look at this one, which the community named Cranky John, because one of the big features of this one is that it is a hand crank start. More specifically, it is a hand crank flywheel start. So what that means is when we come up front, I can press and hold G, which will start spinning this crank up, which starts to spin the flywheel here on the side. And once this starts to touch 53, I should be able to let go, and let's see if we can get it first try. Nope. Sometimes it can take a try or two to get it to actually turn over. Let's see. 52. 53. I saw it blink there for a second and let go. There we go. And what this is doing is, as you spin the hand crank, it puts all of the power through this long drivetrain, couple of gears that spin up the flywheel, which then spins this gear and a clutch gear down here. So while you are cranking the handle, the clutch gear disengages, allowing the flywheel to spin up to speed. As soon as you stop cranking the handle, this clutch gear engages and dumps all of the power from the flywheel into the engine to try and turn it over. And once it's turned over, the engine starts powering the flywheel and everything starts running. Now, if this takes too long or is just not what you want to do, there is another way to start it. If you use the 5 tool, which allows you to grab things and move them around, you can just grab the front wheel and give it a quick crank. And that can also be used to start it. So this is using an inline 3-cylinder that goes into a high-low gear system as well as a forward-reverse. So you can use high-low in forward or reverse. So kind of there's 4 gears in total to this. However, this is using a clutch gear transmission, and I've not been having good luck with it. I would like to say it functions, but it doesn't really work well. It's enough for right now, and I want to say I'm happy with it, but I'm really not. It's just littered with problems. The clutch gears seem to slip a lot, so especially with the low gear, it's not able to put out the kind of torque it really should be able to. But that being said, it does have 2 gears. Does have 2 gears in reverse. That all goes back to normal wheels, and it has a cutoff for the fan blade on this one, or I guess you could say the mower blade, because we noticed while we were building this in stream that the amount of tension that could be built up in this rotating blade was acting like a flywheel, which should be helpful, you would think. But it was causing so many problems, causing these clutch gears to just slip and bind, and eventually we did have to add a cutoff down here. And if we hop up top, you can actually notice a lot of the different levers we've added. So these are different indicators for what all things do. So one is our parking brake. Down here you can see it in park or in drive. By default, we are in high gear because it's, for the most part, just a traveling gear. But if we press shift, we can go down into low gear. If we come to a stop, we can press R and it flips us into reverse. And there you can hear the clutch gears just not having a good time. And we have the little connector so that the blade runs. And then if I come to a stop, I can press that again. It's detached, and as soon as I press it, you can see the power transfer is on. So, let's see if there's anything else that I should mention. Oh yes, I did actually do a bit of work with the front suspension as well. By default, it's just a free-floating pivot here in the center, which means it's, one, really easy to roll, and two, that it just goes everywhere. The suspension just bounces really easily. We were able to come up with this little linkage system to use the new torsion springs on either side so that as you lift it, it pivots and pushes each side down, giving the front end a little bit of a suspension. It's a little strong on this one, solely for the fact of if you do end up disconnecting the mower blade, you need that much strength just because of how like this thing turns. It wants to roll, so you have to have a really stiff front suspension on this, unfortunately. So, with all that being said, I think that's everything I did to it. Adding in the engine, clutch gear, transmission. The kind of showcase of this is the flywheel starter. That's what took us the longest to get working and get running properly. Other than that, I think that's really it. So, I'm going to go ahead and hop in. Let's drive around for a little bit. Take off the parking brake. You will also notice on the top of it, there is this little rounded bit. That's actually because that's where the fuel is stored. And this is set up to run completely with the energy consumption turned on. So there is the alternator, the battery, and the fuel tanks. Funnily enough, it shouldn't need a battery because it's a hand crank start. But you can't connect electronics to the alternator directly. You can only connect them to a battery, which kind of makes sense, but also in a vehicle like this where there is no starter motor and it's purely mechanical, just crank the handle, engage a clutch, and it takes off with the engine. In theory, you could just tie all the electrics directly to the alternator. I wish I could have done that, but there is a battery on the side because there's no other way to connect this, unfortunately. So, that all being said, I'm really happy with how the engine turned out. The transmission is awful. I would like to revisit this, but I would have to completely gut the transmission and completely redo that. One thing I'm now realizing I did not mention is this actually has a governor on it as well. So the top speed of this is limited to 25. Just driving around it wants to stay at 21. But there is a flywheel down here, or not a flywheel, a centrifugal clutch that is basically using itself as a brake. So once the actual speed of the vehicle starts to exceed a certain point, it starts to apply pressure to the rear wheels, braking force to the rear wheels, to prevent it from going past 25. Which is oddly interesting, having to limit yourself in the game. Because while this can go faster, and it can get up to like 30 and 35, the steering geometry on this vehicle is not built for 35 miles an hour. And that's why we had to actually add the governor, because if anything past like 20, it gets really unstable, and 25 was like a hard limit. Anything past 25 and it would flip. It would flip at a light breeze, basically. So with all that being said, I know I've said that statement multiple times, I think it is about time to end this episode out. If you did enjoy, please leave a like. If you have suggestions, leave them in the comments down below. Enjoy the channel, enjoy what I'm doing, please subscribe, it helps out a lot. And right now, if you really want to help out the channel, please share this episode with a friend. I'm going to end it out here. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for sticking around. And until next time, peace.